Welcome on board. I hope that you had a great night. Karibu sana. This is Morning Cafe. Rise and shine. Let's look at what is happening. There's so much in the world of news also as we take a look at, different conversations that are very, very important. The Rio Marathon is almost here. And so we'll be having, a very important conversation as pertaining to the preparations of that alongside the sponsors of the same. But before that, as always, it's important to have, a look at what is happening in the world of news. And I'll be having gentlemen that will help me decipher on these matters as we look, first of all, at what the papers detail this morning. And then we shift gears to looking at the stories prepared by my team and to that very, very important conversation. And we have the Standard newspaper, the People Daily, as well as the Daily Nation. And before I take a look at it, I am calling upon you to be part and parcel of the conversation. The hashtag is Morning Cafe at Linda_Lela TV47KE. I will be sampling your comments as we continue with the broadcast. The Standard newspaper is here with me, and my name is Linda Alela. This is Morning Cafe. And we first take a look at the front page of the Standard newspaper and what it details. Front page, the biggest story is on the question of GMOs, and there's that temporary ban by the courts as to the importation of the GM maize. Court stops GMOs as Linturi disowns Korea. Well, a maize saga deepens after High Court suspends the importation as Agriculture Cabinet Secretary claims he does not know anything about decision to ship in grain. This is captured on page 6, saying that yes, while Korea is a CS, it is within his docket to make these arrangements of such maize, and therefore he says he has no idea of what it is that Moses Korea said in relation to this conversation. And so upon that halt, we wait to see whether indeed it will be a reprieve for the farmers and just how long it runs. Away from it, it's a question of peace, especially for the East African community. Yesterday, we had an extensive talk as to the role of the East African, or IALA, that is the East African Legislative Assembly, and just what needs to be done to make sure that we enjoy integration and above everything, the question of peace. And yesterday, we saw President Uhuru Kenyatta spearhead this conversation as to dealing with the M23 and also the question of peace at the DRC. And we saw heads of states joining in as well, him alongside the president of the country, that is Dr. William Samoei Ruto, and just what really they pushed to make sure that this was indeed a success. Some of the presidents like Cherera Museveni, as well as the president of Rwanda, Paul Kagame, joined in virtually in this very important peace conversation, and of course as they seek to yield fruits as pertaining to that. Away from each, U.S. links local ports to China military base expansion plan. This is a special report that has been captured on the front page of the Standard newspaper, expounded inside on that special report. Away from it, examinations began yesterday. And in earnest, of course, in spite of small hitches, we have seen our students sitting for this crucial moment. That is the Class 6 students as well as the Class 8 students. And those ones that are in Form 4 then will be sitting for this examination beginning Friday. And equally we'll be following up to see what is in relation to that. And back in business while lifting of FIFA ban is a big deal. Remember the first time there was that ban, of course it didn't rub us well, but definitely this move, of course orchestrated by the Ministry of Sports, definitely goes in handy for us to get to celebrate this, and we seek to understand just what fruits then it presents to us. A story captured on page 37, and therefore in this report as to the question of sports on the Standard newspaper, you would definitely get to understand some more in relation to that. And yes, still on the question of sports, Brazil win as Ghana leave South Korea seeing stars, and Kudus scores about 2. Black Stars beats South Korea 3-2. That is yesterday on the World Cup. Casemiro scores about Brazil's all-important goal against Switzerland. And yes, the world continues to follow up on this very, very important game, as many look at it as though a question of entertainment, but also with that aspect of being diehards to specific teams. The Daily Nation Yes, the Daily Nation, reprieve for farmers as court puts to brakes on GMO imports. That is the story that has been captured right on the front page of the Daily Nation, and that is expounded on page 10. And away from it, hope for peace in Congo as the East African community as well, and the leaders back ongoing talks. That is a story that is here on the front page and expounded on the back page of the Daily Nation. The biggest story, delayed windfall, 5,000 ICAS jobs, and hopeful were expected to submit their applications by October the 27th. Remember, the courts at some point also has declared this very position, or has declared this position of CAS as unconstitutionally, or not constitutionally constituted, so to speak. But from the look of things, there is a possibility then this position then will hold. And the many faces that were diehards of President William Ruto during the campaign moments are equally waiting to see whether they'd be lucky enough to be nominated to these positions, or their names to be presented on these very positions. It's a long wait, as these hundreds of President William Ruto supporters are awaiting for this. We can only wait to see whether they'll be lucky enough to get this. The faces of former Member of Parliament Margaret Wanjiru, Mike Sonko, the faces of former Member of Parliament Purity Wangui Ngirichi, former Senator, that is Millicent Omanga, and many others. Test of a lifetime for primary pupils also. The Kenya Certificate of Primary Education, KCPE examination, and equally the Kenya Primary School Education Assessment, KPCM, and of course this started yesterday. We still also have our very own reporters that are down on ground for us to get more updates as pertaining to the same, and so we'll definitely be looping them in to see just how day 2 is taking shape. Ministry on the spot for blocking cleanup of maritime agency. That also is a story that is on the back, as we're talking about the Ministry of Public Service that is on this very spot after it stopped the implementation of the management of cleanup at the Kenya Maritime Authority after probe revealed that there was gross mismanagement at the parastatal. And also on this question of peace, we have touched on it as well. On the question of sports, All-Stars more than an apology. Sports CS Namwamba reads the Riot Act to Kenya Rugby Union officials as captured on page 39. And let's have the People Daily. All right, so the People Daily, protests over Cherera probe. This also is the biggest story that we'll be looking at. Raila to lead Azimio supporters in countrywide rallies with the first set for Nairobi tomorrow in fresh pushback against investigations into conduct of 4 election bosses. Will Ruto blink? Well, that has captured right there. And they say as government, they will make sure that they provide the necessary security for this process to be conducted, while the president also says that it's in order to challenge this, but it does not call for some of these sort of protest or picketing, but we'll be looking to see just how that will be addressed. High Court halts the process of imports of GMO. Also, that is a conversation that is on the People Daily, and we'll definitely be looking to see what plays out in relation to that. And so those are the key stories also that are on the People Daily. And so more or less the same stories that have been captured on these other papers, that is the Standard newspaper as well as the Daily Nation. Now allow us to shift gears a bit and take a recap of the stories prepared by my team. The pioneer class of the competency-based curriculum sat for its first national examination Monday. The grade 6 learners began writing their first paper of the Kenya Primary School Education Assessment, KPCEA, which also will enable them transition to junior secondary school. And as our senior education reporter Sharon Baranga reports, candidates registered for the Kenya Certificate of Primary Education Examination, KCPE, also began writing their exam, as of course this is very, very important a process in their life.
Early Monday, the country was waking up to the administration of national examinations. 3 examinations are running concurrently: the Kenya Certificate of Primary Education Examination (KCPE), the Kenya Primary School Education Assessment (KPSEA), and the Kenya Intermediate Level Education Assessment (KILEA) that is being administered to learners with special needs under the competency-based curriculum. Education Cabinet Secretary Ezekiel Machogu was in Mombasa, where he warned people planning to cheat in the national examinations that they will face the full force of the law.
And every center, we have 2 security personnel who are also providing security to each and every center within the country. We have provided transport to each and every center, including areas which are not accessible. We have helicopters which will be able to dispatch the examination papers.
In Nairobi County, the Chief Executive Officers of Kenya National Examination Council and Teacher Service Commission observed how the examination was being administered to the candidates.
It is important for Kenyans to appreciate that KCPE and KPSEA are different. With KCPE, the learners are sitting for 100% of their marks. With KPSEA, they already have 60% of the marks. They're only looking for 40%. And therefore, the processing of KCPE will obviously take a little more time and a little more intense work, but we have put all measures in place to make sure that we fast track.
The responsibility of ensuring that the integrity of national examinations is upheld does not entirely rest with the Ministry of Education. The William Ruto government has adopted the previous government's strategy of using a multi-agency approach in the administration of the exams, and so cabinet secretaries were out in the field supervising the exercise.
The ministry had organized to ensure that food for candidates is delivered to the places that do not have. But even in my going round, if we identify a needy school or a needy case, I should be able to coordinate with my colleague in education and my colleague in labor, so that then the food is brought to the schools that may be needy and have not received it initially.
Jinsi tunavyosimamia mitihani yetu in a very direct way in affect jinsi ambavyo professionals mbalimbali wanazingatiwa ulimwenguni, na serikali imehakikisha kwamba maafisa wake wako macho. Vile umeshuhudia hapa, idara ya usalama iko hapa. Serikali imehakikisha kwamba mawaziri wako katika vituo mbalimbali kuhakikisha kwamba shughuli hii inaanza kwa hali inayostahili, na serikali imetoa ilani ya kwamba mtu yoyote, awe mwalimu, awe mzazi ama afisa yoyote ambaye atapatikana katika sakata yoyote ya kuharibu mitihani ataadhibiwa vikali sana.
In 2022, more than 2.5 million candidates registered to sit for the KCPE and KPSEA examinations. Sharon Baranga, TV47.
Now, more than 3 million Standard 8 and Grade 6 students began their national examinations in many parts across the country. Everything went smoothly, but as Collins Lusweti reports, challenges were reported in a number of areas.
In Garissa County, the Kenya National Examination Council was forced to employ the services of 2 helicopter planes to transport examination materials across 4 sub-counties in the region due to poor road network occasioned by ongoing rains. The helicopters also delivered the materials to regions facing insecurity threats, especially at the Somali border.
We are going to use choppers in areas where getting access is a challenge because of the rains and other security challenges. So we will ensure that examinations reaches all centers of the country.
In Narok County, a total of 248 candidates are sitting for the examinations while pregnant. The county is among the leading in early pregnancies. Narok County Commissioner Isaac Masinde says the government has put in place measures to ensure pregnant candidates sit for the exams without any trouble. A number of ambulances have been dispatched in examination centers in case of any emergencies.
In Narok County, tuko na 248 candidates ambao wanafanya mtihani wakiwa na hiyo hali ya ujauzito, na hawa wasichana tumehakikisha kwamba tumewapangia vilivyo ili waweze kufanya mtihani in a conducive environment. Tunauliza center managers na supervisors, in case maybe mmoja akiingia katika lepa ataweza kusaidiwa. Pia tumeweka ambulance iko tayari in case there is an emergency, ni kupika simu tu ili waweze kuhudumiwa.
In Busia County, 4 people sat for their national examinations from Busia Referral Hospital, nursing different illnesses. And in Bungoma County, 15 private schools did not pick up examination materials from the office of the county commissioner. The reasons why the said schools didn't turn up to collect the materials are still unknown.
Ajali tarehe 19 Jumamosi, akiwa natoka shuleni akaingia nyumbani, alikuwa anaendesha baskeli.
In Nyamira County, 2 students fell ill during the examinations, among them a grade 6 pupil who is currently admitted at the Moi Teaching and Referral Hospital. And in Nyandarua County, a class 8 pupil at St. Joseph's Olkala was unable to sit for the exams after being involved in an accident in the morning. The pupil is currently admitted at Kenyatta National Hospital.
He is a candidate, class 8 candidate at St. Joseph's Primary School. The boy went into coma, is hospitalized and is in Kenyatta National Hospital. We have already communicated so that if the boy gains consciousness, then he can be given exams from Nairobi.
Collins Lusweti, TV47.
Now, a High Court has temporarily barred the government from importing and the subsequent distribution of genetically modified GMO crops and foods until a case filed by the Kenya Peasants League. A social movement is heard and determined. The story was produced by Andrew Juma.
The High Court has temporarily suspended the government's move to lift the ban on GMOs after the Kenya Peasants League filed a petition against State Law and Cabinet Secretary, Ministry of Agriculture, Livestock and Fisheries, opposing the importation, cultivation and consumption of GMO crops and food in the country.
We are saying the entire loss of
The League members argued that GMO foods pose a deadly health hazard to Kenyans, particularly the poor and those of low income. In his affidavit, the leader of the Kenyan Peasants League, Sidi Otieno, said the recent statements by Trade Cabinet Moses Kuria justified their concerns that GMO was indeed a threat to life.
You will start going home after before 2027 if I can tell you, I can assure you. Hata utaona hata baba amefufuka sasa.
And what the millers are doing is to misadvise the minister that we have no maize in this country so that they can bring in duty-free maize from countries that we are not sure whether it is good maize, whether it is GMO.
Wait first, can we pause and allow the farmers to harvest the maize, to sell the maize, to open the National Cereals and Produce Board so that the farmers can take the maize there?
Agriculture and Livestock Cabinet Secretary Mithika Linturi has, however, defended the government's move to import GMOs, saying as a ministry they will do the necessary if the need arises.
So if there will be need to bring GMO maize, we will do it because the cabinet has decided that we must lift the ban. But remember, even if we were to get there are certain that guide use our importation of GMO.
According to Linturi, his ministry, in collaboration with the Council of Governors, has formed a 7-member team which will come up with a clear framework to address the food shortage at the county and national level.
Whatever interventions that will recommend themselves and to me when I have finished my meetings with the technical people and have taken the right advice from them, I will not hesitate. If there is no need, it will not happen. If there is need, I will not blink an eye.
The move by the High Court to suspend the importation of GMO is a big blow to the Kenya Kwanza government, even as it struggles to address the food shortage crisis in the country.
It is not easy, especially in this country, to close your ears to detractors, and there are many detractors. And this morning, Steve and I had a conversation and agreed that we are going to move until you tell us to stop. I know there's been a lot of, people to pull you back left and right.
On 3rd October, President William Ruto lifted the ban on genetically modified crops that was imposed in 2012, a move which elicited mixed reactions in the country, with Azimio leader Raila Odinga, among others, stating that he will fight GMOs in court and on farms across the country.
Now, President William Ruto has lashed out at opposition leader Raila Odinga on his planned mass action to defend the 4 dissenting IEBC commissioners, terming the move as irresponsible. The president spoke on a day Interior Cabinet Secretary Kithure Kindiki said security personnel will provide security to Odinga and his allies during the IEBC rallies, as Apollo Kamau details.
Ahead of the much anticipated IEBC demos by opposition supporters in defense of the 4 embattled IEBC commissioners, President William Ruto has castigated the move, terming it as irresponsible and one that will disrupt the country's peace.
Street demonstrations, street fights should not be part of the script of any responsible opposition, unless they want to be a dictatorial opposition, which I don't think that's where they want to go, because that works for nobody. It doesn't even work for them.
Ruto spoke as his Interior Cabinet Secretary, Professor Kithure Kindiki, while on a security assessment tour in the city, said the government will provide security to opposition leader Raila Odinga and his supporters during the IEBC consultation rallies.
That I'm called upon to guide again in this.
With the battle for the soul of IEBC entering its second week, before the National Assembly's Justice and Legal Affairs Committee, IEBC Vice Chair Juliana Cherera, through her lawyer Apollo Mboya, protested that the hearing will not be fair, saying her fate has already been determined in the wake of President William Ruto's social media post calling the commissioners rogue.
The end of this process, as is envisaged in the standing orders and the Constitution, may very well reach the desk of this person who has called these officials rogue.
There is a prohibition on what we can say and what we cannot say, both in the House and in committees, touching on the President, the Speaker, any judge.
IEBC Commissioner Irene Masit, who was expected to appear Monday afternoon, boycotted the sitting, challenging the committee's jurisdiction to hear the petition. Masit, through her lawyer Donald Kipkorir, told the committee that she will be moving to court to seek redress, saying the sitting has violated her rights.
Irene Masit has indicated that they are not willing to appear, and that is perfectly within their right. What I know is that when a petition, when allegations are made against you, and you do not controvert them, then the committee may be constrained to take them as unopposed and therefore admit them.
As the proceedings were going on, a handful of opposition supporters camped outside County Hall in solidarity with the 4 IEBC commissioners. On a day of protests against the committee proceedings, the exit of Irene Masit leaves 3 other commissioners to argue their case in what critics say is an already settled matter. Apol Kamau, TV47 at County Hall.
And President William Ruto has said that he fully supports the move by Nairobi City County Government Johnson Sakaja, or the governor, to close down clubs situated within residential areas. And as Moige William reports, the county government has already started a crackdown on the said nightclubs.
President William Ruto has backed Governor Sakaja's move to close down nightclubs operating within residential areas, stating that it is a move that will keep the noise away from children and further pledging his support to the devolved unit. The president's statement comes hours after several clubs were raided by police, among them the popular 1824 club on Langata Road on Sunday night.
My young brother Sakaja of Nairobi, that please keep the noise away from our children. You have our support. And ensure that the standards of the city of Nairobi the standards of the capital city of Kenya.
Earlier, Governor Sakaja, through his social media handles, had issued a final warning to nightclubs in the city's residential areas to comply with the order of switching off music by 10 p.m. or have their licenses revoked.
I know there has been some outcry. Your Excellency, yesterday I closed a few establishments that have been making noise in residential areas. And I said, Your Excellency, on that one we will not relent. Let us be thoughtful to other people. If you have refused to soundproof, if you have refused to provide access, then do your business in a different place. But let our children have peace. Let them sleep.
Sakaja's directive followed complaints from the public over increased noise pollution from nightclubs in residential areas.
We are providing designated areas in Nairobi, in the CBD, in some parts of Westland, some parts of Upper Hill, where you can play music as much as you want. But we will give our children peace in our neighborhoods so that we can bring back order. Bringing back order, Excellency, is not always a smooth process. It is painful, but it must be done.
However, a number of Kenyans have called on the Nairobi County Chief to also extend the same directive to places of worship that are said to be polluting noise around residential areas. Mwige William, TV 47.
And as political cracks in Azimio, La Umoja One Kenya coalition keep threatening to break up the opposition, a few months after the August 9th general election, the Right Honorable Raila Odinga-led brigade has now highlighted effective measures to strengthen their unity. And as Mike Kagongo reports, Azimio La Umoja One Kenya is set to hold a parliamentary group meeting this Tuesday to solidify the members' unity.
As a section of MPs is blaming Azimio La Umoja leader Raila Odinga for failing to link them up for leadership positions in the National Assembly, Senate and the East African Legislative Assembly, the opposition faction is set to re-strategize its mission to oversight the government of the day, led by President William Ruto. The Azimio troops have warned that the coalition will not sit and watch an attack within its ranks by its own members and the government, after the latter's intention to pocket its members to work together in the Kenya Kwanza government formation. In a closed-door meeting chaired by Azimio leader Raila Odinga Monday, the team reacted to remarks made by Trade and Industrialization CS Moses Kuria on GMO maize importation to Kenya.
The matters which have gripped the attention of the country in the recent past, principally the matter of the attempted removal from office, if I may call it attempted forceful removal from office, of the 4 IBC commissioners, the grave matter of GMOs and the alleged plans to import GMO maize by the government.
National Assembly Minority Leader Opiyo Wandayi said the meeting concluded to bring together the coalition's members Tuesday to discuss the way forward on the matter's security and the skyrocketing high cost of living.
The matter of insecurity, which has become prevalent across the country, and generally the matter of the skyrocketing cost of living that has left a majority of Kenyans in the countryside unable to put food on the table. These are matters that we continue to engage on.
This as the opposition last week maintained that GMO was not a solution to fighting hunger, which has ravaged several parts of the country, arguing that the famine witnessed in the country is being used as an excuse to reintroduce GMO foods. Tuesday parliamentary group meeting is also expected to discuss a myriad of other issues, touching on the opposition, including the coalition's legislative agenda, its future and the hope for realization of the Building Bridges Initiative dream.
And therefore, as a first practical step, we have resolved to convene the Azimio La Umoja One Kenya Coalition Party parliamentary group meeting tomorrow, Tuesday, the 29th of November 2022. A PG meeting which we envisage to come up with far-reaching resolutions.
This as Azimio la Umoja leader Raila Odinga said they will hold countrywide rallies to seek opinions from the public on the petition to remove the 4 IEBC commissioners. Raila said the 4 chose to stand with the truth, and that is why Kenya Kwanza is pushing a petition to oust them out. Last week, Nairobi Senator Edwin Sifuna, who doubles up as ODM Party Secretary General, maintained that no one has been forced to remain in Azimio, adding that anyone or any party is free to leave the coalition. He, however, says members of each member party have a right to partake of the fruits put on the Azimio table. Western region lawmakers maintain that Raila betrayed the community by excluding its leaders from both the minority leadership positions in both the Senate and the National Assembly. However, the coalition has resolved to settle their differences internally. Mike Kagwongo, TV 47, Nairobi.
Well, that equally will form the basis of our conversation this morning. Now, a sharp division has emerged between Meru residents who are supporting Governor Kawira Mwangaza's impeachment bid and those who are different or differing her or defending her in a position that is, of course, in participation of the forum that was held at the Meru County Assembly. This was just a day before the governor moves to defend herself case before the assembly members. Our reporter Boniface Baraza with that detail.
These are teams of Meru residents who turned up for a public participation forum to discuss the impeachment motion against Meru Governor Kawira Mwangaza. The public participation forum that was anticipated to determine the fate of Governor Kawira by the Meru electorates was characterized with chaotic and confrontation scenes, prompting the anti-riot police to swing into action to calm the situation at the assembly premises. Despite the chaotic scenes that characterized today's forum, with the initiators of the impeachment motion pushing for removal from office of Governor Kawira,
mtu wa kanisa kazi yake ni kuunganisha watu na kuombea na kuelekeza kwa Mungu. Yeye kile anafanya hapa ni kuchochea watu na kuwapiganisha vita watu hapa Meru County. Sasa tunasema mama impeach kama kawa itaje MCA lazima aende ndani. Kwa sababu hata rais mwenyewe anahitaji aende MP na anatambia ikiwa Kawira hata tambua MCA hata apende ama asipende ataenda ndani.
Kawira also received defenders who are backing her cause in equal measure.
Nataka kusema Meru County sisi ya public participation kama impeachment imeenda inastahili rudi. Tukiangalia nyuma yangu hapa ni watu wenye MCS wameweza kuwalipa. Sisi tuko wakazi na tuko youth. Public participation haijaenda mzuri.
Well, a bit of a hitch there. All the same, we apologize for it. We'll be getting more updates as to what is happening in Meru County. Now, the government will deal firmly with drivers of illegal arms in arid and semi-arid lands. President William Ruto said the move is necessary and urgent as it will nurture peace in these regions. And of course, he spoke during the opening of an induction workshop of the Pastoralists Parliamentary Group at KICC Nairobi. The president asked the members of parliament to be ingrained in the discourse to foster harmony and stability in northern Kenya.
Tunaendesha na sisi tuko tayari kwa maendeleo, tuhakikishe ya kwamba watu wetu wamefaidika. Sisi tutajitahidi na uwe karibu.
Asante sana Mheshimiwa Seneta. Nitaomba sasa ni mwalimu that has brought together residents from
more personnel from our disciplined forces. There are additional steps we are going to take to make sure that for the first time we put this menace behind us. I urge members to support and complement these efforts. This induction workshop takes place when we are in the throes of a devastating drought whose severity has not been experienced in 40 years and whose reverberations continue to shock our economy. The ASAL regions have borne the brunt of this calamity, and our pastoral communities have suffered unbearable losses in lives and livelihoods.
Now, Treasury and National Planning Cabinet Secretary Professor Njuguna Ndung'u has dismissed claims circulating on social media claiming that Kenya Kwanza government is misusing public funds. This comes a few days after President William Ruto secured a loan of 360 billion for constructing 100 dams after meeting with officials from the African Export-Import Bank.
And possibilities it has if it runs balanced trade.
I've just talked about food security and climate change. Can you argue against that? So the whole issue is how do we finance it? And because financing is a constraint, that's why we are going to a PPP way and concessional financing, concessional loans. So in a sense, the whole issue for you should focus on the necessity of that. Food security and climate change is going to be a very strong development agenda going forward. So the whole issue is how do we secure dams? How do we build dams so that we create that mitigation of drought effect that we've seen, adaptation, and even coming up with mitigation projects using high-yielding varieties, isn't it? That's where we are. And so it means that whichever way we finance them is going to be very, very important for us because it's going to create the resilience we need.
All right, that very story now takes us for a quick short break. We come back with you, gentlemen, so don't you go anywhere.
How well do you know what's happening around you? Morning Cafe with heated political debates. Baraza la Siasa.
Hiyo kitu azungumzie, angalie hali ya maisha ya watu.
Informative health discussions. Business, farming. Tasty Wednesday, Fitness Thursday, and Feel Good Friday with amazing DJs, celebs,
waimbaji, kuna comedians, alafu kuna wajinga,
and music bands every Monday to Friday from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. How well do you know what's happening around you? Morning Cafe with heated political debates. Baraza la Siasa.
Hiyo kitu azungumzie, angalie hali ya maisha ya watu.
Informative health discussions. Business, farming. Tasty Wednesday, Fitness Thursday, and Feel Good Friday with amazing DJs, celebs,
waimbaji, kuna comedians, alafu kuna wajinga,
and music bands every Monday to Friday from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. How well do you know what's happening around you? Morning Cafe with heated political debates. Baraza la Siasa.
Hiyo kitu azungumzie, angalie hali ya maisha ya watu.
Informative health discussions. Business, farming. Tasty Wednesday, Fitness Thursday, and Feel Good Friday with amazing DJs, celebs,
waimbaji, kuna comedians, alafu kuna wajinga,
and music bands every Monday to Friday from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. How well do you know what's happening around you? Morning Cafe with heated political debates. Baraza la Siasa.
Hiyo kitu azungumzie, angalie hali ya maisha ya watu.
Informative health discussions. Business, farming. Tasty Wednesday, Fitness Thursday, and Feel Good Friday with amazing DJs, celebs,
waimbaji, kuna comedians, alafu kuna wajinga,
and music bands every Monday to Friday from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. How well do you know what's happening around you? Morning Cafe with heated political debates. Baraza la Siasa.
Hiyo kitu azungumzie, angalie hali ya maisha ya watu.
Informative health discussions. Business, farming. Tasty Wednesday, Fitness Thursday, and Feel Good Friday with amazing DJs, celebs,
waimbaji, kuna comedians, alafu kuna wajinga,
and music bands every Monday to Friday from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. How well do you know what's happening around you? Morning Cafe with heated political debates. Baraza la Siasa.
Hiyo kitu azungumzie, angalie hali ya maisha ya watu.
Informative health discussions. Business, farming. Tasty Wednesday, Fitness Thursday, and Feel Good Friday with amazing DJs, celebs,
waimbaji, kuna comedians, alafu kuna wajinga,
and music bands every Monday to Friday. Of Untold Stories.
All right, so welcome back to the broadcast, and the gentlemen are all here set for a very important, candid conversation that we're about to have, that in relation to what is happening in the country and beyond. Of course, the conversation of just how we can attain peace at the East African level is on. Definitely the GMO conversation on, upon that halt by the court, and we get to understand whether indeed this will be in totality or it is, a short-term reprieve, as they would term it. Importantly, just taking a look at how the government is being steered by, of course, the president, having come in barely 100 days to it, and we ask ourselves, are we headed to the right direction? We're almost coming to the close of the year, and it is always good to have an analysis of what has played out for the better part of the year and what we have achieved as a people. But most importantly, we do not forget the gains, or perhaps the changes that we've witnessed in the education sector, and the fact that our students are sitting for their examinations. Are we on course, even as, of course, the task force presented by the president is still on, and perhaps in a week or two should be presenting their final report. And the gentlemen, as I have said, are all set. Dr. Fred Ogola is with us this morning. Dr. thank you so much for creating time to be with us. And right next to you is none other than Peter Mushendu, who's a governance expert. Asante sana for equally creating time to be with us this morning. And on this end is Engineer Alex Mwathi. Engineer, thank you for creating time. Engineer is always moving around with some of his books. I hope you gentlemen have managed to see this. He tried Liberation of the Nation. I don't know whether he gave up. And when we see the likes of Right Honorable Raila Odinga on the course, then we ask ourselves just how tight the price of democracy is, and just how many Kenyans are willing to go fight it out and make sure that we get to enjoy this. Most importantly, we have a historian here and also a specialist on the question of matters integration, Professor Macharia Monene. Thank you so much, Professor, for speaking to us. One of the key things that are making headlines this morning is indeed your subject, the DRC conversation, the East African integration conversation, barely a week or perhaps 2 weeks after us getting representatives that are going to sit at the East African Legislative Assembly, and we ask ourselves, are we making gains in terms of making sure that this conversation of integration then is well received? Yesterday, we saw former President Uhuru Kenyatta spearheading this very crucial conversation, first of all, in relation to how best DRC can manage to deal with M23, but just generally how we can work together as a people. I heard the president of Rwanda arguing that the most unfortunate thing about this is that we have had sessions, we have had talks revolving around how we can work on East African integration and make sure that most of the countries then are enjoying peace. But unfortunately, these ones have not been implemented. Unfortunately, these conversations that they have had have not yielded any fruits. Just what gives us the confidence that it will be a different affair this time around?
They are making progress.
Yeah.
And it is always work in progress. From 1960s, when Congo went haywire for different reasons. The effort to cool the temperatures is two-pronged with the military side, but it's a political thing. And the good thing is that President Uhuru has managed to bring people together, at least the leaders, so even when President Kagame is talking, he is in principle for it, which is a good thing. And then all the other leaders also are in principle for it, because each of the countries, except Kenya, has been accused of being associated with the one militia or another. So if they can contain their militias, then we are making progress. In the long run, I know President Tshisekedi insists that he cannot talk to M23.
Yeah.
And it is his right as president. It is also
for him to imagine that he cannot speak to
them. I mean, it's unrealistic. M23 is a force. And whether it is propped up by Kagame, as the claims are, who in turn claims that Tshisekedi is propping up something else. To be inclusive, all players have to be consulted, whether directly or indirectly. They should feel they have a stake in it. And I think that's the direction that's being moved in, to make everybody feel that they have a reason to participate. How they go about it is the big question. It's like you have a war situation, and it is actually a war in Congo. It's in Congo, and there are parallel tracks. There's one which is the soldiers showing their guns, and then there's also the diplomatic angle, where people are talking. They call it track 2 or something like that. It's sending feelers. What can we do? And I think they are sending feelers now. So good progress has been made, and that's what the reports we are getting. And we see President Ruto and President Uhuru and Tshisekedi and some other people saying that they are working together.
Yeah.
Very good. Now the next step is to actually bring these people on the table, not just the leaders, but the combatants.
Yeah.
So that at least they are representative. And I think that will be achieved with time. Because the first thing is to build confidence, and which Uhuru is very good at. Building confidence, making people feel they are. I'm with you. We are together. So
there's progress.
We don't have to kill each other. Let's talk. But the stage of talking to all these groups is yet to come. But the groundwork is being laid, which is very good.
All right. Well, definitely one of the key things that we hope will be managed with endowed with so much of resources, we would love to see, a peaceful DRC. We understand how crucial it would be for them to, enjoy the peace, because if it is not so, then as well, the difficulties spill over to the next or to the neighbors. And so perhaps that's the reason why they term it necessary for us to have this conversation. Under the auspices of course, the African Union, there's been conversation as to, making sure that, Africa is at peace. The different countries, the different nations that are in trouble, are in turmoil, are, get to enjoy that peace. At this level of IGAD, we have even witnessed, the likes of South Sudan arguing that in as much as it appears as though these countries are willing to go out there and speak the question of peace, unfortunately, they have pointed a finger. Somalia itself has pointed a finger at these other East African nations for, pretending to be interested in the question of peace, yet they are the ones that are causing more trouble in their very nations. What then gives us the confidence that equally on the other side of DRC, they believe that there's some aspect of goodwill for us to enjoy this peaceful coexistence?
Yeah, thank you very much, Linda. In fact, for me, before we ask what are they doing, how are they doing, let's ask why is there a lack of peace?
Yeah.
A mineral-rich country, remember that DRC has the highest amount of cobalt in the world, leading, and copper, second. And then if you look at that, it's worth $24 trillion worth of mineral salt. So this is the main contention here. Why is Kagame is interested in DRC? Why are these people interested? So the issue here is economic. So even if someone can come and pretend that, oh, it's all about we want to come together, people are fighting, those soldiers have no business fighting. There's what you call a commercial interest of these things. And this thing spans beyond AU, because you see some of these developed countries also want to keep DRC unstable so that they can enjoy it. In fact, this is the curse of being wealthy. If DRC was a country like, let's say, a country like Mauritius, which the only resource it has is his people, no one will ever be fighting. Have you had any war in Mauritius? They have the best peace. No one wants their mineral salts. Even if you leave Africa and go to what's happening in Ukraine and Russia, it's all about the Ukraine-rich mineral resources which are there. So this is one aspect to it. Secondly, what is the business of this president fighting? Are they fighting for East Africans, or it's about their own personal interest? And I can tell you, if you ask people in DRC Congo, they want peace with any other country in Africa. But the leaders have got self-interest. And I'm sure that's why you're seeing that President Uhuru Kenyatta, former president, is now focusing on talking to these people to tell them, let us put our interests maybe aside and focus on the bigger picture. If you want X amount of money, there's just so much money you can make. A mineral resource worth 24 trillion shillings. Do you want maybe a tenth of it? What do you really want? Just state what you want. I'm sure these are the agreements. I'm sure had we been privy to what is happening inside those boardrooms, I'm sure the conversations could actually be overwhelming. But I could tell you that I was in DRC Congo. I've been there severally. I stayed there for 1 month trying to set up one through and there. They really want peace, because without peace, they'll never see prosperity. In fact, the third populous country in Africa, the most mineral-rich country in Africa, and then they're the 47th in terms of GDP, and they are number 52 in terms of happiness, what you call human happiness. Can you imagine if you're number 1 in everything, but in terms of happiness, you are number 52 out of 54, and then your GDP is 47 out of 54. And then you realize, I also did survey and found out that 82% of people in DRC Congo do the jobs they must do, not the jobs they would like to do. So this is something which is very sad, and I think needs to be revised. Look for how can we really ensure that when you are rich, it does not become a disadvantage to you.
All right, it's interesting. And perhaps we are not always very confident to, come out with this kind of hard talk, to acknowledge the fact that even within East Africa, even within Africa, there are some of our leaders that have interests in these specific regions. And we have seen, even with the colonizers, just how divide and rule has been instrumental for them to enjoy some of the things that they get to enjoy. Do you have the confidence in the leadership of East Africa to address this matter, knowing very well that we have reports left, right, and center as to their very own interest in these spaces? Are these very interests going to be the triggers of them wanting peace in these regions because they know, or because they get to know that, you know, well, if I have something in DRC Congo, it's in the best interest that then there's peace there, so I can be able to conduct my businesses. If I have a farm there, then it will be in my best interest to make sure that this area is peaceful so that I get to see this. And also think of the gold, think of the minerals that they get to enjoy.
First, as the professor has put it, the claim that the president of Rwanda has had stake in the war in Congo could be varied in the sense that we are dealing with a massive refugee spillover to Congo in 1994. The Hutus, when they were chased by the Tutsis, they fled to Congo, and formed so many militia groups there. And that is why it is claimed that the president of Rwanda, Kagame, is behind M23, because M23 is a composition of the ethnic Tutsis who have been fighting this war. You remember what they dub as the Second Congo War between 1998 and 2003, claimed said that it claimed almost 3 million people have lost their lives through the conflict. When you are talking about a nation with minerals worth $24 trillion, it is a trigger for everyone. Now, it is not in the interest of multinationals for Congo to be in conflict, because you know the process of getting minerals. There is a very strict international certification of minerals. So today, most multinationals have stopped buying minerals from Congo. And Congo today in Africa, if the conflict is managed and development and mining of minerals has resumes in the international standard, probably should be the biggest economy in the sub-Saharan Africa. But you find, because there is a lot of vested interest in Congo, this conflict, we keep sitting down and talking about peace. But until such a time, the leaders who are, and as a professor has said, majorly the reason why Kenya is spearheading these talks, it is because their hand has not been seen in the conflict of Congo. Apart from one time, you remember Kabila, the son, came to Kenya following some gold that was stashed. It is said it was stashed here in Kenya. Kenya has majorly stayed out of that conflict. But I'll tell you, the reason why we cannot get our hands around the peace in that region, that richness in mineral is playing a very big role, because the black market is what is funding arming of these particular groups. And I tell you, weapons are not brought in the country because I gave you a story. I went one time to Baragoi, that is almost 170 kilometers from Marel town. You will find a young man who has not even been to Marel town in his entire life, owning a gun that is as new as 2016 or 2017. That tells you somebody purchases those weapons and arms people there so that they can continue fueling the conflict. This is the same case with Congo. Look at the kind of weapons that are being used in that war, especially in Kivu province. They are using state of the weapons. So that tells you there must be international players who are funding this war to continue siphoning minerals in the black market. So what I am hoping to see, and I agree with Daktari, this particular conflict is beyond the African Union.
Is it?
Because the biggest people who are funding these wars are probably not multinationals from Africa.
Wow,
They are,
interesting.
they are institutions that are outside Africa because they continue to siphon minerals from there. They continue to siphon black market minerals from there. So I think this is an issue that must be addressed. And unfortunately, people like Kagame cannot come to the table with their hands clean. Because you remember, they have been fueling, even between 1998 and 2003, you will find the likes of Angola, the likes of Zimbabwe, the likes of Uganda, the likes of Rwanda have had a stake in that war. So I think majorly, we must declare interest on the table.
It's
and
interesting.
Then look for peace for that country.
And so what are we saying? Exercise in futility?
No.
We remain positive.
In life, we must remain positive.
Okay.
That there is a possibility that you'll find a way through. I think of a situation in 1942, and people are thinking about the so-called Second World War. There are a lot of us who think that was more of a European tribal wars. You know, it's just like Marrakesh and Pocos fighting. So it was a tribal war in Europe. And though it drew in America, Japan, and the rest of them, in 1942, if somebody was to think of peace, they would think that it's an exercise in futility. Yeah. But because people started talking, and of course the war continued, there was a solution. But I want to pick up on what Kagame, what you mentioned, Kagame has said, that look, we've been like talking, what do you call them? It's making noise, cymbals, without really putting anything in place. And he's been accused of being involved in the situation in DRC. And like my friend says, there could be a lot of indication that this has been involved. But one of the things that you notice among the East African leaders is one guy who really is for integration. And he does it. He doesn't just speak about it. Because if there was integration, then most probably even those conflicts in terms of resources will go away. Because even in Kenya, there are resources that we don't exploit. We have gold in this country. Do you know how much we have? Dr. has a lot of statistics. I don't know that he has statistics of the amount of gold we have, but I know we do have. If you listen to people, they'll tell you that in some areas in this country is almost closed up, like Isiolo and those sides, because there is a lot of gold that is being dug and sold through the black market, yet is known by the people that are in power. The point I'm making is that Kagame has made a lot of steps to help integration. You remember when we were talking about the East African, when Rwanda joined the East African community, he's the first president to allow visa-free entry into his country. He's the first one who allowed anybody from East Africa to go and look for a job. You know, you walk into Rwanda today, and maybe they're opening a station there. You walk in, you don't need a work permit. You get a job because you're an East African.
Yes.
So what he's telling them is that, look, guys, we've been talking a lot. We go into conferences, we agree on course of actions, but nothing happens after that, in reality. And he's asking them, why don't we stop that process? And actually ensure that whatever, first of all, we agree, we implement.
Right.
Because if we don't implement what we agree, why are we discussing more? That's the question he's asking.
Yes.
And you listen to my colleagues, they all have positions in terms of the source of the conflict, the minerals, the what have you, the insincerity of the leaders that are. But Kagame is asking, the first step is not this conference.
Yes.
The first step is to honor what we agree. Because if I sit with Prof, and we discuss about, you have a caplot in Kiambu, and we discuss that.
Yes.
That is true.
Oh,
we discuss about it.
All right, that's interesting.
We discuss about the price. We must go ahead and have a sale agreement that allows us to be able to consummate that agreement. If we don't have that sales contract and I pay him money, then we have been wasting time. Kagame is telling the East African leaders, look, we've been wasting time.
Yes.
Let's stop. Now, in this meeting, we'll have another raft of 10, 15 items. Since we haven't done the past, what gives us confidence that we will do these ones? Zero.
Right.
Let's go back. We've said East Africa must be integrated. You know, when we started this East African Customs Union, within a month, because in the 2016, 2015, I was doing some exports to Rwanda, Rwanda was the first country that implemented that if you needed to export anything in Rwanda, it was one system. Of course, Uganda now have joined in. Tanzania is still struggling to join in. I think the last year, I think they started doing some bit of it. But for him, within a month, it was done. He's saying, let's not be a talking shop. Let's implement what we have agreed, so that whatever else we agree become sensible.
All right. Yes.
This integration is a good thing to talk about.
Right.
But don't put too much hope in it.
Unfortunately.
Political integration, that is. Other types, yes. And because when you come to political integration, you're talking about jobs for important people. So which of them will be flying the big flag? We have seen it even here, local politics here. We have people who are saying, oh, let us unite. And they're busy undermining each other because only one of them is supposed to be the leader. The others are just jokers, and we are united because you are behind me. And so when it comes to East African integration, if you are talking about people, some presidents, stop being called president. It's not going to work. Okay?
Yes.
So that one will be a big...
We might as well forget that.
Yeah, it's been tried from the 1960s. And even in colonial times, there were attempts at integration, colonial integration, that did not work out. Why? Because there was fear that Kenya might run away with everything. So Uganda and Tanganyika in those days.
And you know, we keep asking how we're going to get to that space where the younger brothers, I don't want to call them that, but then I have, will stop feeling threatened by
That's
Kenya.
why now the other ways of looking at it. And let's give credit to the idea of the East African community because it is very attractive. That's why Rwanda came in. That's why Burundi came in.
Yes.
That's why Congo is in.
Yes.
That's why South Sudan is in. And maybe in the Sudan and Ethiopia and when Somalia gets its acts together, might want to come in.
Right.
But they are not coming in for political integration.
Okay.
They are coming in for other forms of integration.
Right.
Which means that we remove some of those borders we have there at Malaba. And other places, which are really not necessary if you're going to talk about being one.
Business and being one.
Yeah, business. The social integration of the people, not the political integration, the social integration. So when you move from Kenya here and you go towards Amboseli, to go to Tanzania, what happens once you cross the border? That interaction itself
is very
important because you are stopped at the border, you are harassed at the border, either going in or coming out. Remove that. Nobody, I mean, Samia does not have to stop being president.
Yes.
And Ruto does not have to stop being president.
And after all, the borders are clear.
But do we need those borders there? And we've seen sometimes during the COVID fiasco, we cannot even honor our certificates. You got your jobs about on 2 or 3 or whatever it is, and you get to Uganda, they say, no, we don't recognize those. But that has stopped. There was a time when there was a problem.
Yeah.
And so there are other ways of integrating without necessarily saying that there should be one president for the region.
Right.
Because that one is very divisive. But we can do it in other ways. Yeah. And once we have social and economic integration, willingly, not because some president said it, but willingly, then we'll be moving towards that.
The right direction.
To a point where the political integration becomes irrelevant. The difference there is today between the other East African community, the one that collapsed in 77, and this one, is that the one that collapsed in 77 depended excessively on the summit, the presidents. And it came to a point where presidents could not meet. You have Cherera, you have Idi Amin, and you have Kenyatta, and they were not seeing eye to eye. So the work of the community could not go on because these people are quarreling, particularly Cherera and Idi Amin.
Yes.
You know, The one that came in, and we give credit to the people who revived it, because they did. Moi, Museveni, Mkapa. They realized they had made a mistake. Yeah? Almost 10 years they said, we made a what?
A mistake.
Yeah, but these were new leaders, not the one. And so they revived it, and I think there was a thinking they should not make the same mistake of relying on the summit. So they created a secretariat, and these other institutions that are supposed to run it. And they've been doing a good job, although they could do better.
Yes.
We make a lot of commitments which we do not honor. Our members do not pay their dues. That's one of the problems.
That's the biggest problem, actually,
yes,
even at the African Union, yes.
And give credit to Kagame, he pays his dues. But then in itself, for Kagame, for Rwanda and Burundi to join the community, they saw something in it. Not so much the political giving power, but the interaction that makes it easy. And when people are interacting, they don't fight too much.
Yeah.
So that's why when Congo was coming in, and this is why I give Uhuru Kenyatta credit, because he had this idea, if Congo becomes a member of the community, then it might be able to lessen the what? The chaos in there, which will be good for East Africa.
Yeah.
And of course for Kenyan business people, it will be very good.
Yeah. Extremely good, perhaps him being one of them.
And you have most of the trade in Eastern Congo goes through Mombasa. So Kenya has a direct interest in that place.
Yeah.
And Congo itself has a direct interest in Kenya. So there is that attraction that will bring people together. And I think that's what's being worked on.
Okay.
And he's convinced everybody, those militias and the M27, it's in your interest also to
tone these people down. Well,
as a country, we also stand to gain because a few years back, I was working for the Honorable George Nyanja, who also doubles up as a very serious architect. And he used to tell me a lot of architectural work in Congo is done by Kenyans. There's a lot of interest for Kenya in that. And then I think that integration, as the professor has said, I don't foresee a political integration in any way. But if we can integrate economic-wise, then I guess we can help our country. And we can do better. Like right now, we are at a crossroads that we cannot agree where we will put the East Africa Central Bank. They are now suggesting that we take it back to Arusha, and Arusha is the same place where the East Africa Legislative Assembly is domiciled. But majorly, I think for me, even if we do not achieve the political integration, if we can achieve the economic integration, it will be good for this country. It will be good for us as Kenyans, because Kenyans are known to be actually very aggressive. If you go to Southern Sudan, again, a lot of architectural work done in Southern Sudan, including the defense headquarters of Southern Sudan, is done by a Kenyan. So I think as a nation, and you have to give it to Uhuru Kenyatta, he saw an opportunity where he can be able to grow the East Africa economy and by extension the Kenyan economy. And I think William Ruto is doing a good thing by supporting that initiative to ensure that we integrate our economy. If as soon as possible, we can get what is called the East African shilling, then I guess we will be able to integrate our economy, and that opens up the entire economy, and those Kenyans who want to go and do business everywhere can be able to do so. I think it is in our interest to be able to resolve all those chaos that are within the region, and I agree that as the big brother in this community, this government must start paying its dues to the East Africa.
I hope we do.
We cannot just have a minister or a cabinet secretary. Yes. So I think majorly those are the. Let's allow. You see, the success of the African Union is the success of the Secretariat in Addis Ababa, being given a lot of work to do. That the leadership of this East Africa community is not necessarily domiciled at the presidencies.
Yes.
It is domiciled at a secretariat that has been enabled to do a lot of things. In the biggest of time,
as we call it,
yeah, Tanzania has played a lot of stumbling blocks into the success of the East Africa community. But I think with the current president, things are shaping up, and I think commercial and economic integration, it is in the offing. Political,
we should not even. Okay, let's close that for a moment because we have a couple of other matters that we might need. Make it very brief. Yes.
First of all, we can have where to learn. EU has walked that journey, so that's why I don't want the East African shilling yet.
Yes.
Because the euro has suffered just because that integration has not worked. In fact, it's the biggest fear that other countries believe that Kenya shillings will swallow them. And that brings a lot of fears. Let's start with social integration. At the same time, you have to understand that no one feels East African yet. That's why dollar has worked much better, because Americans, first of all, feel American. Is when now they start feeling other states. But East Africans, we have to feel East African first. And people have all these national differences. If we cannot just sort out the 54, I don't know, the 52 tribes in Africa, in Kenya, we are having challenges. So Kenya, I believe that there's a way to learn. There have been other integration taking place. Social integration is great, but let us be very cautious, because the economic integration is the issue, because that's why some countries have refused what they call movement of labor. They have agreed movement of people, but not labor. You go to Tanzania, they tell you have to get this, this and that, and you can't employ this and that. People are not still very secure because they believe Kenyans are very aggressive, and Kenyans need to be a little bit polite as they negotiate, so that they can benefit.
Okay, yes. All right, that's interesting, yeah. And it's not just been about East African shilling, it has gone to a level of us having a current, a common currency across Africa. That has been the biggest problem and the biggest conversation. Also, as we try to achieve, the trade aspect of making sure that we're able to, traverse the different parts of Africa freely. That is a conversation that is on. I'm sure we're going to have sessions of the, African Union, and we just hope that at some point we would make progress. Gentlemen, the Right Honorable Raila Odinga is set to hold the first Kamkunji session, that is tomorrow, in relation to the ouster of the Cherera 4, and according to him, it would not be in order, and that this is witch hunt for that matter. But then again, the question lingers as to whether, even by the declaration that was made by the judiciary, or yet the Supreme Court, in relation to the presidential petition, would it be justifiable to, perhaps, people argue in favor of the 4 petitions that have been presented against the Cherera 4. It goes beyond the government itself. These are petitions that have been presented by other Kenyans. And so would it be in order for the likes of the Right Honorable Raila Odinga to say that this is perhaps witch hunt? And do you support the 4? There's ground enough to have them go home?
Number one is that as political animals, whether it's Kenya Kwanza or Azimio, people must look for something to happen, to hold on. And the more it brings up emotional feelings in people and their supporters, the better the subject. So that if I say that these guys were doing this and that, the court decided, I didn't agree with the court, then these are the people who seem to be driving my agenda. So for political expediency and for 2027, or peradventure you can actually be able to do something else, impeach someone in the middle, you want to be relevant. And Azimio, in my opinion, are trying to be relevant.
Okay.
Because if you think about it, the Cherera 4, in my opinion, came out the day that the elections of the president was supposed to be announced, and said that we as the commissioners have conducted these elections very fairly. Actually, this is the best election that we've had, except that the announcement of the presidential election is opaque, is vague. We don't know. Yet we knew all the whole issue. The matter is taken to court, and the court has a stand about it. Okay. okay, and says, look, these elections were done correctly. Do you need to necessarily agree with them? No. It's freedom of opinion and it's a freedom of thought in this wonderful country of ours. Now, there are people who have sent petitions wanting to know what exactly happened. In my opinion, again, is an opportunity for the 4 commissioners to go and explain themselves as to what was opaque, what was not, so that people can understand what exactly happened. Supposing peradventure the court ignores evidence, then they have an opportunity to go and bring out the evidence of the truth of the matter, because they are not standing trial. It's an investigative thing to be able to understand what really happens. And the world over, people do that. You know, the reconciliation that Tutu held in South Africa was all about that. Come and speak out and let's know the truth about this thing. Was there really something there, or was it what the court called hot air and the other unsavory word, witch hunt and all that? Was it that, or was it real matter? Yeah. So, in my opinion, people need to be given an opportunity to be able to come out and speak. Where else can the Cherera 4 tell us the truth? They're not going to tell us in the streets. The best place to go is in front of Parliament, at the legislative arm. And I know there's an argument as well that they have a local standard to be able to do that or not. That's a different argument. Yeah. But that's the best place to be able to come out and be able to speak the truth. So I see 2 situations. You remember we were almost going on the streets because of GMO. Now that has become, it did not excite people enough to draw them on the street. You remember we had the Portland cement land, where Kuria was saying that we're going to take back this land. And Kalonzo was saying, I'm going to lead demonstrations. So this is really looking for relevance going forward, so that you can be relevant in this country.
All right, just why would the Right Honorable Raila Odinga want to be relevant is one of the things that we'll be asking. The president tells him demonstrations are not the way to keep us in a check. And so we get to decipher some more on that. Dr. allow us to take a quick short break, and then we come back, expound some more on that very point.
Well, do you know what's happening around you? Morning Cafe with heated political debates. Baraza la siasa.
Hiyo kitu azungumzie, angalie hali ya maisha ya watu.
Informative health discussions. Business, farming. Tasty Wednesday, Fitness Thursday, and Feel Good Friday with amazing DJs, celebs,
waimbaji, kuna comedians, alafu kuna wajinga.
And music bands every Monday to Friday from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. How well do you know what's happening around you? Morning Cafe with heated political debates. Baraza la siasa.
Hiyo kitu azungumzie, angalie hali ya maisha ya watu.
Informative health discussions. Business, farming. Tasty Wednesday, Fitness Thursday, and Feel Good Friday with amazing DJs, celebs,
waimbaji, kuna comedians, alafu kuna wajinga.
And music bands every Monday to Friday from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. How well do you know what's happening around you? Morning Cafe with heated political debates. Baraza la siasa.
Hiyo kitu azungumzie, angalie hali ya maisha ya watu.
Informative health discussions. Business, farming. Tasty Wednesday, Fitness Thursday, and Feel Good Friday with amazing DJs, celebs,
waimbaji, kuna comedians, alafu kuna wajinga.
And music bands every Monday to Friday from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m.
All right, we have governance expert Dr. Fred Ogola, as well as Peter Mushendo, who's equally a governance expert, engineer, and also governance expert here. You want us to get you some more coffee, right? Evidently, because I'm looking at that cup and I'm thinking there is no coffee, and I think I also need some, so my team should be able to work on that. Yeah. Alex Mwathi, and as well Professor Macharia Munene with us in studio this morning, and the conversation is on. We have touched something small as to the question of peace in East Africa and beyond, but most importantly, we are at that point where we ask ourselves, the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission in a shaky position, so to speak. The three commissioners are supposed to exit the stage come January, and we also have the Cherera 4 that, well, could survive in the event that they survive the petitions. But the question on the table is, what are the possibilities that they will survive, and what are the grounds of, these petitioners seeking to have them being ousted out of office, and what would it mean for the, IEBC? Do we have an IEBC that perhaps does not have officials, and what goes into the process of bringing on board others? What happens in the event that we have by-elections, and we know that we have by-elections on the road? Just what exactly is playing out? And when I speak about this, I always want to relate it to what plays out in the African continent at large, that there's very minimal confidence in the electoral bodies across the continent, and you ask yourself why. This is a clear or a classic example, of the same witnessed in the country. Do you suppose they should go?
First of all, let me give basis to this. There's a book I've written called Dynamics of Political Strategies in Africa. In that book, there's a chapter talking about the independence of electoral commissions in the whole of Africa. Yeah. And there are 11 items. 1, security of tenure. Financial independence, source. Financial independence, security of tenure independence. For example, if you have security of tenure where you can be ousted from office, are you really independent? Physical security. Imagine Chebukati was announcing results while the person guarding him is probably receiving instruction from the person who do not want one of the candidates to be president. Yeah. So there are those 11 things. I won't really say all of them. But if those independents are not there, all electoral commissions in Africa, nearly all, the first word begins with the word independent. And they are not independent. None is independent. So that's why you see now this whole lack of trust, lack of faith in all the electoral commissions across Africa. Yeah. Independence is supposed just to brainwash us that they're independent. But if you look at it, the exchequer can remove the budget. The president has a say on the budget. They have a say on their physical security. Their tenure is determined. But legally, the Constitution gives them a little some authority. That's what work. Legally, they have some independence there. Yeah. That's why Chebukati could do it and then say, I followed the law, and then the Supreme Court goes on to uphold what he said. So there are the 11 criteria. 11, only 7 of them, there is no independence. 4 are okay. Now, coming up to this situation, the main question we're asking here, why is this happening at this time? What is really the main contention? I agree with my senior there that there's aspect of independence there, but also there's a lot of people trying to find a way on which they can find their own, because why Raila put a petition in Supreme Court saying, I not only contest the results, but I also want the Supreme Court to declare that Chebukati cannot be a chairman, if at all there will be another run for election. Remember, James Orengo says something interesting, that the Supreme Court upheld the election for some ideological reasons, because it was difficult to give Raila his prayer by saying, we nullify the election, because immediately we nullified the election, he was going to say, now Chebukati cannot be chair. We could still be having President Uhuru Kenyatta in office, working with different tribunals. So you ask one question, what is the chance? Do they have a chance? I can tell you most likely no, because of the fact that there's somebody who controls the institution of Kenya at the moment. That is William Ruto. Yeah. By the fact that he has the right to choose the tribunal that will investigate them. Investigations are being done before Parliament. Yeah. Who really controls those institutions? It is him. So the most important thing, the most interesting thing you have to realize, yesterday he said that he is in support of Cherera 4 going home.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I fault him. That's the only thing I fault him. Because if we appoint a tribunal, like my brother said, let us hear what happened. Don't give a comment. You are too senior for that. I think he has a lot of power. And people, he has a lot of institutional control. He could have just allowed it to take its own course and not mention it. In a little way, we can say, if you own a dog, why do you need to bark? Let the dog bark for you. So you have parliament, you have tribunal, let them work for you. So I can tell you, the chances are flimsy. Is Raila right to go to Kamukunji?
Yeah.
As a citizen with the rights to go to Kamukunji, that is fine. But if you look about the appropriateness of going to Kamukunji, we want to heal this nation. I'm not supposed to say I support Raila or not. Whether I supported him, people know where I am. But let us just look for the country now. Right. My brother here knows that I was never in the camp for the other side. But I can just say honestly that we need to heal this nation. If Raila has got any other legal process to follow, this is a legal issue if you look at the approach. Let us not follow it trying to whip emotions. But if for political relevance, we ask ourselves, how much will you get from it? Yeah. Because, for example, who will go to Kamukunji? Look at how many people who are in Azimio, who are from this side, have really joined the other side. We are understanding, what are you going to gain from it? Just making noise in Kamukunji, will it really gain it? And at the end of it, can it stop your people from leaving? If you make noise in Kamukunji, then tomorrow these guys are ousted. People will tell you, Kumbe, you have no powers, because we follow Baba because we live. Baba is Baba. Yeah. He should be able to be in charge, but I don't think here he is having in charge. Right. Let us fight battles we can win. Choose the right battles. Is the right honorable Raila Odinga choosing? Allow me ask Professor this and then I'll come to
I wanted to answer him.
Yes.
There is this illusion that the president controls everything. Yes. Which is, I would say, it remains to be an illusion because we have a constitution that is in existence. I could not believe when I saw the Right Honorable Prime Minister saying that Parliament does not have jurisdiction on this matter. I'll tell you, Article 1 of the Constitution says the sovereignty of this Constitution belongs to the people. Yeah. Part 2 says they can exercise it directly or indirectly through the leaders they elect. When you go to, is it Article 251, it provides the process of a removal from office of any member of an independent commission. And it says that if Mushendo, I feel that Cherera 4 did not do a good job and I am dissatisfied, I should reorganize and put up a petition and present it to Parliament. Yes. That is what Reverend Nthumbi has done. He has presented a petition in Parliament. Right. The Parliament is going to consider that petition. Does that petition have merit? Does it hold water? If it does, they will recommend to the president that the issues that have been raised by the petitioners are very pertinent and they require to be investigated. Again, that article provides for the necessary qualification of those to be appointed in that tribunal to investigate. Now, you cannot abdicate the role that is provided by the Constitution, and you tell us that you want us to go to the street to ask Wanjiku whether the Cherera 4 should be sent home. Wanjiku on 9th of August exercised his right in Article 1 and elected leaders who should represent him in hearing the allegations that have been put forward. So the Prime Minister is treating us to a circus because we as Wanjiku donated our authority to our elected leaders, who are in turn, Article 251 provides them with authority to hear that matter, and they are not the final say. They will just do a recommendation to the president. The president is not the final say. The president is going to appoint a tribunal. That tribunal is going to come up with a report. What the president probably will do is, if he gets the report from Parliament, he may suspend the commissioners pending the investigation outcome by the tribunal. Right. So let us not domicile everything in the name of the Honorable William Ruto. We are not operating in a vacuum as a country. We have a constitution that provides a legal framework. Have we deviated from that legal framework? That should be the question. If we have, then we have a problem. But if we are following what we have given to ourselves as the Constitution, then I must not be treated into that illusion that President William Ruto is everything and is controlling everything. Then you are telling us he is acting in an absence of a constitution. If you have a problem with what we have set up in our constitution, we will do like Doctor has done. He is proposing some constitutional changes
yes.
to take that power away from the president. But as of now, what is being done with Cherera 4 is following our constitution to the letter.
And that the Right Honorable Raila Odinga is privy to this and understands how important it would be for us to, observe the rule of law. Same applies to the president, and perhaps that's why Daktari then would argue why articulate or say something on this matter yet. We understand very well the constitutional provisions as to how this should be dealt with. If really we are to view this as to what engineer says, that perhaps it's a style or a way of just getting or maintaining that political relevance, we look at the likes of Kizza Besigye, who was in the country just the other day, the likes of Morgan Tsvangirai, who passed on, may his soul rest in eternal peace, the Right Honorable Raila Odinga, for the longest time holding that position of opposition leader, a noble leader for that matter, not just in Kenya but across the global or across the African continent. Is this the way to go with all this, push and pull and perhaps ways of saying that let's go the Kamukunji way? Is there a better way he could have handled his political lifeline as opposed to taking this direction? In as much as a country, we desire to have that one person who plays the opposition role.
Well, if he did something different, then he would not be Raila.
Okay. So because we're used to him as the Right Honorable Raila, and so it is not in order for us to argue that he should be okay.
We have very clear things here.
Right?
There is serious need for investigation of what happened on that day. Because there was an attempted coup. Who was the coup maker? That's another matter.
Yes.
but clearly things did not go right on that day. If somebody was trying to knock Chebukati's head with a rungu,
yes,
on that day, you need to investigate what the hell was going on.
Yeah.
Then the sudden disappearance of 4 people, from Bomas to Serena. And they make statements which sounded very interesting. The validity of the statement or not is not the issue.
Yeah.
But the whole scenario was a fiasco.
Yeah.
And it was not good for the country. And it was not good for those who were involved in that thing, whatever it is. Is Parliament right to call for a hearing or investigation? Yes. That's their right. Now, is Raila right to complain about it? Yes, he's a politician.
Right. Yes.
And politicians are in the habit of doing things. I'm saying let's go to Kamukunji because Kamukunji is emotional. Yeah? It has a historical memory. Yeah? In the colonial days before independence, natives, that's what we are all called. They would go to Kamukunji because they could not go to Uhuru Park. And so the Easterns. So it has an emotional connectivity. Nothing more than that. So when he says let's go to Kamukunji, he's trying to arouse emotional memories of the struggle. And Raila is in the process of rebranding himself. That's why he says looking for relevance.
Right.
He is looking for relevance. And he's also fighting Kalonzo Musyoka. Okay? So this thing is not just Raila and Ruto. No. It's fighting for who is going to be the chief in 2027.
Right.
If you notice these 2 people, when Kalonzo says something, to say I'm going to do something about Ruto, Raila has to come back and say, I'm going to do better against what? And the issue is which of them is going to be recognized as the leader of the opposition come 2027.
And Kalonzo has already declared.
Yeah, he's there. And is going to be a candidate.
Yes.
And Martha wants to be a candidate.
Yes.
In 2027.
Right.
So you have this struggle for repositioning for 2027 in the guise of challenging Ruto.
Okay.
And so that's going on. So there is nothing wrong with Raila being Raila.
Yes. but as Daktari would ask, just what will he achieve with that?
No, a lot.
A lot?
Oh, yes.
Do you think they come out and join in?
No, there may not be that many people.
Yes.
There will be a few people.
Yes.
Okay? They'll be
the
there.
Bunge la Mwananchi.
They'll be there. How relevant they'll be.
Yeah.
But the issue is not those people down there. It's Raila's image.
Yes.
As a revolutionary, as a fighter for the people. And so now you can forget his behavior before the election.
Okay.
So, because he lost, because Ruto took away his claim. See, for a long time, Raila was the champion of the people. And Ruto comes from nowhere and takes up that championship and runs away with it. As Raila was portrayed as what? Part of the club, the dynasty club, and that was supposedly messing everything.
Yeah.
Supposedly.
So, we have to be keen with words, yes.
Yeah, Ruto got away with it.
Yeah.
So now, to change that image of Raila as part of the privileged little group and go back to what he used to be, what people knew about him.
It will take...
He needs to do these things.
These things, okay.
And one of the ways, silence those people who want to take his job.
You see, I mentioned the likes of Cherera, and I mentioned the likes
they are
of
the same group.
Besigye. The same group, but just what is left of Kizza Besigye today, even as you articulated.
The point is, in politics, any publicity is good.
Okay.
In fact, you remember I wanted to vie for some positions. And in one of the meetings that we had, somebody said, look, but you know, Alex, you have no controversy. How do we sell you? And they were suggesting...
Can you cause some drama?
No, they are suggesting they will create one for me. You're too... You in the public eye, you're too clean to have relevance in this. So what we need to do is to create something for you. Whether it's we bring in another woman or do something so that you can be relevant. So publicity is critical for politicians, and this gives a lot of publicity for the brand Raila. Number two, the politics is the greatest among, if you rate the art of seduction, politics comes to the top. People may say it's woman, man, but I think politics is the highest. Because for woman, man is one-on-one. Politics, you're seducing the masses. And when you have a seduction, the story told may not be the reality. I don't know whether you've heard the story of the HR manager who went to supposedly heaven and hell, and he was given a chance to go to hell first. And people are very happy drinking and all that. Then he was taken to heaven. People are praising and all. So when he was asked, where do you want to go? He chose hell because it was more fun.
Yeah.
That's the art of politics. That you tell people to see things as bright as possible, while in reality you know that's not the truth. And that's the art of politics. So in this situation, the brand Raila need to be rebranded. And it is true. You remember in the campaign and even before campaign, the whole issue came as one point that there's a dynasty and the hustler.
Yeah.
Where was he placed? In the dynasty. In the past, where was he? In the hustler.
Yes.
So he was drawn out and put on the other side, in the wrong side. He must come back.
He must.
To where he belongs. Politically, he still remains dynasty. And all of them are dynasty anyway, but he has to pluck himself out. How do you do that? You must find a subject that is emotive. Something that is emotive and speaks against your competitor. And that's why you remember when the GMO was passed by the cabinet, there was a whole hula baloo, and there was even at that time there was supposedly to be meetings to discuss that, and all that. Then it was realized that Kenyans were not reading from the same script. They were not as emotional as they were on that. And then it would backfire, because someone is trying to feed Kenyans and you're saying not to give them food. That can work against you, and that was packed. So this is the next best opportunity. About 6 or whatever number of million people voted for Azimio. And those are the people that he's trying to draw. You remember I told you that these guys were right and Chebukati was wrong. Now that the government has won, they want to verify these four so they can justify their position. So this number will obviously agree with him, and that brings up an opportunity now for rallying between now and 2027.
And is it 2027 or is it that desire to be called on the table?
So what I'm trying to say is that I agree with you that they must look relevant. I agree with you that the Raila must be Raila. In fact, some Luos, if you like, even his main followers, did not recognize Raila during 2022 election because they were looking at him and saying, this is not the guy, because he was preaching a different script. It's like someone who has been using Quran, eventually start using the Bible. Of course, they're very related. But just to say this, why, Prof, I agree with you, but partly I want to tell you this. I've even written a very good article by saying that a political missile against William Ruto is unlikely to succeed because he's so much in that. Yeah. If Raila found out an economic missile, in fact, the hustler narrative, the beauty of it, it was not populism for the sake of just seducing the masses. They were told that there was some bread coming to the table. Yeah. There was an economic narrative attached to the hustler narrative. And William Ruto, you can't beat him in politics. Look, even his boss never wanted to be president, and he just sneaked and got it. So he has amassed these things very well. Look at even all the people he promised to give what. I think nearly everybody is happy.
Is it? There's a story on the paper this morning. Nearly. I agree. And some of them are here, waiting for the CAS jobs and others. Yes, but yes, he's done well in terms of rewarding royalties.
Very well.
Yes.
But the economic missile can succeed because of what? The populism with which His Excellency William Ruto became president, the promises he made, it is becoming difficult to achieve them given the real economic situation, because you can say anything but someone's going to bed hungry. That's the most difficult thing. Yeah. Should Raila find a narrative which is an alternative narrative, which is an economic narrative that will drive with this populism agenda, we'll be fine. Remember 2022 election transformed elections in Kenya for the good because of the fact that for the first time, there was real economic discussion going on. Where will you feed these people? Yeah. How will you pay debts? Where will you get this money from? The other elections, if you look at it, will be different. And now, when I finish with the issue of Cherera now, the issue of Cherera and the Chebukatis is not something new. Look, the first main electoral commission, which was headed by Kivitu, Kivitu was a very respected guy. But after the election of Kibaki, he was diminished. I'm sure that, Professor, you know that the best student in strategy must be very good in history. If you are poor in history, forget about strategy. Because history repeats itself in strategy. Yeah. So then we come up with the Isaac Hassan. Very respected again. In fact, normally, for you to be appointed chair, you must command respect and appeal from the whole population and political class in equal measure. After Isaac Hassan conducted the election, you could tell very well he was being removed from office. Then now we are going to Chebukati. Chebukati has been hounded. Actually, he's the only surviving one for having conducted 2 elections. And now Chereras are coming through. So the issue of hounding the IBC commissioners is historical. And that's why I'm proposing it's traditional. We would like to have an overarching what's called root cause analysis and solve it to the core. That's when now we shall be able to have put these things to bed. But this piecemeal of someone going to parliament, then someone going to Kamukunji, as a father of the constitution, I would call upon Raila Odinga to at least prove it at this time. And the president swore, when he took over office, that he will uphold the constitution. In fact, he has been fighting against what is called state capture. What I'm trying to say, these 2 gentlemen, I think even to heal the nation, they need to start speaking from the same script. But engineer will tell you, immediately they speak from the same script, then one side dies. And that side is the one that is trying to get power. So it's difficult for politicians to speak one language. So, Linda, for the longest time you'll be news here. you'll always hear counter opinions. If one person agrees with GMO, the other one disagrees with GMO. Remember in 2012, Raila said that GMO will advance science. In 2022, GMO is very bad. But he's right in a way by saying we should do our own GMO here, but not import GMO. So you'll take a position not very different from what you took, but for another reason. So everybody can find a reason to disagree with each other. The only thing is how you execute. And that's why my concern is, how is Raila executing himself, even if he's rebranding? Remember, Kenyans are thinking about food now. Kenyans are thinking about cost of living. When you go and talk about Cherera 4 in Kamukunji, if you look at the population around there, after that, how many of them have food? And here these guys are saying, he will say, let's move on from elections, let us put food on the table. Tell me whom Kenyans will listen to. And that's why the discussion I'm asking, how much will the guy achieve at Kamukunji? If Raila was honest with this matter, he should actually join Operation Ugatuzi and find a way on which the issues we had with, for example, in the Operation Ugatuzi, I propose that we should have IBC select panel.
Hold it right there.
So I'm saying, let us have a deeper rather than surface solutions.
We are going to look at that conversation as to, Operation Ugatuzi. It's largely about the Constitution and whether we need amendments. We have at some point agreed that there are lots of loopholes therein, but just how these loopholes then are sealed, of course, we are left with no choice but to start having conversations as to adjusting or amending the Constitution, just how soon and just how possible, and to achieve what, and in respect of the dynamism of the Constitution. I think this is important, a conversation to have. So allow us to take a short break, and then we come back to that as we also call it a day on this segment.
Well, do you know what's happening around you? Morning Cafe with heated political debates. Baraza la siasa.
Hiyo kitu azungumzie, angalie hali ya maisha ya watu.
Informative health discussions. Business, farming. Tasty Wednesday, Fitness Thursday, and Feel Good Friday with amazing DJs, celebs,
waimbaji, kuna comedians, alafu kuna wajinga.
and music bands every Monday to Friday from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. How well do you know what's happening around you? Morning Cafe with heated political debates. Baraza la siasa.
Hiyo kitu azungumzie, angalie hali ya maisha ya watu.
Informative health discussions. Business, farming. Tasty Wednesday, Fitness Thursday, and Feel Good Friday with amazing DJs, celebs,
waimbaji, kuna comedians, alafu kuna wajinga.
and music bands every Monday to Friday from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. How well do you know what's happening around you? Morning Cafe with heated political debates. Baraza la siasa.
Hiyo kitu azungumzie, angalie hali ya maisha ya watu.
Informative health discussions. Business, farming. Tasty Wednesday, Fitness Thursday, and Feel Good Friday with amazing DJs, celebs,
waimbaji, kuna comedians, alafu kuna wajinga.
and music bands every Monday to Friday from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. How well do you know what's happening around you? Morning Cafe with heated political debates. Baraza la siasa.
Hiyo kitu azungumzie, angalie hali ya maisha ya watu.
Informative health discussions. Business, farming. Tasty Wednesday, Fitness Thursday, and Feel Good Friday with amazing DJs, celebs,
waimbaji, kuna comedians, alafu kuna wajinga.
and music bands every Monday to Friday from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m.
All right, and once again, we have that trigger on the amendment of the Constitution, this time around coming from Operation Linda Ugatuzi. And of course, they have launched a nationwide signature collection process in relation to this. Let's listen into this story that will cue us to the next conversation.
In a radical push to amend the 2010 Constitution through a popular initiative, and what will be the country's fourth attempt to amend the document after Okoa Kenya, Punguza Mzigo, and BBI initiatives, the Linda Ugatuzi Lobby Group flagship amendment, among others, seeks to tame the ambitions of the country's deputy presidents, seeking to succeed their bosses by proposing a 5-year rest period after the expiry of the pair's 2-term in office, a move informed by the divisive second-term reign of former President Uhuru Kenyatta and his then deputy, now President William Ruto.
We are amending the Constitution to disqualify someone from running for office by virtue of being a deputy president of a sitting president, and to wait for a cooling off period after his boss leaves office. The main reason there, we want him to serve the president. Actually, we are helping the current president to serve him wholeheartedly, like Joe Biden served Obama in the administration. He served Obama for 8 years, waited for cooling off period of 4 years, and that didn't stop him from being the current president of the United States of America.
In case the controversial amendment goes through, Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua will have to wait until 2037 to seek the presidency, a move likely to cause divisions in Kenya Kwanza in case the Mount Kenya region settles on Gachagua as Ruto's successor.
We don't want a government that's run in parallel. It costs money. And then secondly, it does not really help to formulate policies which are helping your head of state. Thirdly, you don't learn.
Also targeted are governors who have served their 2 terms in office, with a group proposing a clause that bars the governors from contesting the senatorial seat, among other seats, citing the move as a cover-up to their misdeeds while in office.
We want an amendment whereby if you have been a governor for the last 2 terms, when you leave office, you are barred from standing or vying as a senator or any other leadership position. Because in so doing, we are actually defending thieves and corrupt officials to be held into accountability.
The group has further proposed the IEBC selection panel to be made up of representatives from the 47 counties and all the commissioners to be involved in tallying of results at the National Tallying Center. Also targeted is the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission EACC, which the group wants given prosecutorial powers, the National Government Constituency Development Fund NGCDF, which they support, a Ward Development Fund, and an increment in the allocation of county funds from 15% to 35%, as well as the creation of the office of the official opposition leader and a super senator position to represent senators' interests, among other amendments. The lobby group will launch the 1 million signature collection drive on Monday at the Bomas of Kenya and has dismissed backing from either Azimio or Kenya Kwanza. Apul Kamau, TV47.
Well, a couple of issues there highlighted as, of course, in the wisdom of the Ugatuzi team, they see that this ones would require some bit of amendments. The reason why I opted for us to run with this story is that reality is that at some point in time, the conversation of adjusting or amending the Constitution will be here with us. And from different quarters, we have heard different people bringing different reasons why they think the Constitution should be amended. Interesting ones coming from you and Dr. Fred. Gentlemen, you allow me to start with him so I can trigger this conversation for us to, expound on it further?
Yes.
Why all this, raft matters, and why do you think that, for instance, let me pick the first one, the 5-year rest or the 4-year rest would be necessary for a deputy to behave while they are in office? Until then, it's their time to declare their interest. Remember, there's a time we were trying to seek advisory as to whether then the deputy president should vie for presidency during the time of Uhuru and Ruto. As per the constitution, is that when you serve as president, you exit the stage. And on such grounds, the Jubilee Party, the other faction, really wanted to lock Deputy President William Ruto then from vying. Well, unfortunately, that did not play out. Do you suppose that the biggest undoing of government is when the deputy is focused on their political ambitions?
Yeah, because you saw that His Excellency, former President Uhuru, said that you are always on top of cars. You're working from top of cars. And they were changing accusations. We want a civil society. American Constitution does not have this exactly, but there's decorum. Normally, have you ever seen any sitting vice president vying immediately? And they have just become civil. But for us in Kenya, we don't have to wait for them to be civil. Let's make them do it. So if you have a deputy president who is eyeing, like you heard Gachagua has said, by 2022-23, all Mount Kenya MPs will be him. Secondly, he has gone to Rift Valley doing exactly what Ruto did to his boss. Because when Uhuru was president, Ruto visited Mount Kenya so much, endeared himself to Mount Kenya, until the president lost his own base. And I think Gachagua is trying to do the same. So even it is very strategic that the vice president, deputy president, has no portfolio, meaning he can politic.
Yes.
So we are trying to say a deputy president from history has always had a portfolio. For example, Saitoti was at some time a finance minister, to be substantive, to do government business.
Yeah.
Rather than campaigning. And if you have someone who is, instead of working with you, is trying to inherit you. It's like having a house help at home, Linda, who is trying to become a co-wife. Why don't we just have your house help to help you, to support you, until when they finish, when they say, now, Mom, I've served you enough, I'm now going to get married. Now you can go and get married, you can be free. So we are trying to get this thing clear, to create decorum, like I said, even learning. Like now, I'm sorry to say that Kenya Kwanza government has a lot to learn, even to reach where President Uhuru was with government. Not that there's something wrong, but they are going to take time to learn. Deputy President was always not in office. There are a lot of information saying how many cabinet meetings he actually attended.
Yeah.
So even look at here, in fact, you saw that he was sharing so many Uhuru cabinet, meaning that maybe, according to me, who is an outsider, I can only think maybe he was trying to learn something from them. They passed the GMO bill with the Uhuru cabinet. So we are trying to say that there is a need for a president to be served properly by deputy president. But if that office is just there for a name, then let us remove it from there. We want them to work for the 10 years when they are serving their master. After 10 years, let them now have a cool-off period. And I'm telling you, we don't want them to take advantage. Remember that, Professor, for you to vie for any political office, you need to resign. And all the people are sitting for governors, so many of them resign from cabinet secretaries and the rest, isn't it? Deputy president did not resign from office. He remained as deputy president. He moved from deputy president to being president. How many people should be given such kind of thing? I'm sure those should be demigods. So we are trying to bring civility here.
And a couple of other matters speak of, do not allow these people to come back to vie for other positions like Senator Mandangor of Wasegation. Luckily, from governor to term, then you get into this. If you served your people well, then they bestow the power to you. But in the event that we speak of accountability, and we start saying what happened during the reign of, Mandangor, well, he was in power and perhaps they would need to appear before Senate again. I know there's a little bit of conflict of interest, and
Daktari is putting up quite some interesting amendment of the constitution. But for you to be able to amend a constitution, learning from what Kulo Kota and his brigade have gone through, there has to be a lot of political goodwill. And in fact, it was a miss for them to actually go ahead to state that they are not seeking support from either Azimio or from Kenya Kwanza. Because after the process of signature probably, which they might get, is done, the next stop is at the county assemblies, and the political journey for that amendment starts there. And there is also the platform under which the current government learn. The current government of His Excellency William Ruto learn on a platform of economic change. So any attempt to amend the constitution will be met with all sort of rejection, because they do not want to make the administration about amending the constitution.
But you also agree with me that you come to power on the backdrop of a certain matter, but that does not stop you as a government to address other matters that would be of concern, and I think that's the real essence.
Yes, the kind of amendment Daktari and the team are proposing are touching directly on very serious key offices in the country, and it is going to rub the shoulders
of the high and mighty.
Of the high and mighty. So I am not a prophet of doom, neither do I have anything against Daktari. But I think their proposal is dead on alive.
A popular initiative.
Listen, that is my opinion. Because this is it, and
political
Alex
goodwill
will tell you.
Yes.
If you do not have political, because we have domiciled the amendment of the constitution either through the initiative or the parliamentary way. Bottom line is that it has been domiciled on a political process. Without the goodwill of a political process, then you have a problem. I have said that we have just discussed the popularity and the relevancy Raila is going to need to stay relevant. Do you think the rights of opposition would allow people like Daktari who are not non-political might to shine and put them aside? That is one argument. Do you think that Gachagua and company, who are told to relax for 5 years after Ruto has won, because if you are talking about relaxing for 5 years, you are telling His Excellency Gachagua to wait until 2037. At 2037, how old will Gachagua be? So you can bet on it that particular bill, it might get the signatures, because Kenyans do not do anything to append a signature.
Will it even be 2037 or 2040 something?
Actually, because if you count,
you're assuming that
Ruto was to do 10 years, he will go all the way to 2032. And then you tell Gachagua, who has been the deputy president for 10 years, to relax for 5 years. That pushes that entire process to Gachagua vying in 2037. I mean, even if it is amending the constitution, and I will challenge the doctor here, if it is amending the constitution, there is what you call practicability. There is what you call, is it possible? Is it realistic? Is it the proposals they are making? And I think majorly for me, the proposals they are making will necessarily not, because let me tell you, we are all political beings. Even if tomorrow I'm a member of parliament for Limuru and tomorrow they will not elect me, I will still not pass anything that might affect my chances tomorrow. And that is why haven't we have a clause in the constitution that talks about the removal of a member of parliament. Have you ever seen parliament keen in putting that particular section into practicability? Why would you tell me to take a rope and already tie it waiting for me to hang myself? So I think I wish them well, but their proposal is dead on arrival.
Popular initiative and a say of the common mwananchi. Does it really, as they say, the sovereignty belongs to the people? Is there any aspect and essence of that, especially when it comes to formation of the constitution and the amendments?
First, let me state for record, and I've said this before, that we passed the constitution in 2010 after almost how many years? 2010. We started in 1997. That would be about 15 years of haggling. And we all know that we even tried to do a referendum in 2005 that never worked. And we gave ourselves a constitution. And we say that in that constitution, there are a few things that need to be changed. What we didn't do is to take a moment and define what those few things that need to be changed were at that particular moment. For record, I'm a one who believes that it is too soon to do any change of the Constitution.
Is it?
The people who were there in 1987 in leadership are still the ones who are in leadership today. So there's no differential. Change of the Constitution is a political thing as per our Constitution. So when you talk about popular initiative, it's dead on arrival if the political class don't agree with it. The reason why you had a lot of support with the BBI was because this was a so-called popular initiative, and you remember, Linda, we had many meetings, and I told you there was nothing popular about that. There was no popular initiative about that. And the court agreed with me. Because the president is the one who's driving it. It doesn't matter when you put your surrogates as the chairman and whatever, the people who present the document. We know there are records. This was based on a committee that was formed by the president. And the recommendation of that committee was the one that was used as a popular initiative. So it died on arrival, so it was not popular. Now,
we have a popular one.
So the bottom line is, as a country, we are not ready for any change in the Constitution. Because we told 12 years after the proclamation of the Constitution in 2010, we still haven't implemented it. So why do you want to start changing something that you haven't even implemented completely?
Perhaps to ask Professor that question. But Professor, you understand the importance of the fact that a constitution is dynamic in nature. And that, again, in the very same constitution, there's perhaps no clause that limits you to, a certain period as to when you can now start having a conversation as to changing constitution. And equally therein, we acknowledge the fact that there are a lot of loopholes, and also acknowledge what it is that engineer says, that we haven't even started implementing this to what we would expect. So why would we even think of a change? Do you suppose that it is not in order for us to trigger these very crucial conversations? And a couple of groups have presented this, including even the members of parliament that sit in parliament today, Fafi member of parliament. And all these matters really are valid at some point in time. Can we just sit pretty and say there's a problem here, but all the same we're not ready to have an adjustment?
One can always have a discussion, always. There's no right time to say this is the right time to talk about this thing. How far it will go is another matter.
Yes.
And it's one thing, it is wrong to push for constitutional change targeting people to benefit or to lose. And very unfortunately, many of the amendments we hear proposed appear to, Prof. So when you say there should be super senators and then some leaders, it looks as if you are looking for a job for Raila.
Okay.
That's the way it looks.
Okay.
So that image in itself is not good. And you're not just you. And when Guy was running this thing,
Yashwal Guy?
Yes. And they came up with a very strange thing. We did not go far. If you are 70, you should not be a candidate. And you could say, why are they doing that? They were targeting in the chai. Okay? Then they say you should have a degree. They were targeting Moi. So, because Moi did not have a degree. So they look for, we look at it, this thing looks bad when the genuineness is questionable. You can talk about it, but the image presented is something else, which is the drawback in that thing. Now, one of the challenges we have in the country is the people who are entrusted with implementing the Constitution are not honest people. Okay? Because as soon as we have this thing, we are told it's the perfect. It's like these elections. Before the election, we are told, nothing can go wrong here. It's perfect. As soon as the elections are over, no, everything is wrong. So wait a minute, what's going on here? So there is a lack of sincerity. Now, Professor referred to the Americans. One of the good things, the fortunes of the United States, at the initial stages, they had very good people, very honorable people. Some of them were thugs, that's true. But generally, they were honorable people. So they honored the agreement in the agreement. That's the Constitution. Eh?
Yeah.
They genuinely did it. And that's why the U.S. survived. Not that there were no mischiefs, they were there. As to whether vice presidents can run in the U.S., they have run. Richard Nixon was vice president to Eisenhower. George W. Bush was vice president to Ronald Reagan.
Yeah.
Al Gore was vice president to Clinton. So they ran. Biden is not a good example. That's why the reason he didn't run at that time, he had other problems.
Otherwise he would have.
Yeah, he was thinking other problem, including Hillary, was a problem. So I think it's wrong to appear to propose amendments or changing the Constitution to benefit anybody or to victimize anybody. It's wrong because that thing backfires very badly and the Constitution will not work. So you lose faith in that document the minute you start amending it before it even, the ink is dry. Eh? As, let me say something about William Ruto. Eh? And his government, it's not even 100 days old. Eh? But he appeared to be running very fast, sometimes wrongly.
Okay.
You can run wrongly. And that has really messed him up. When he, on the day of the inauguration, of course there was a fiasco there, the inauguration mess. Then he blundered by saying he's going to kick out the Sahrawi. And then he had to change immediately.
Just very...
Yeah, you know, who told him that? Who informed him? Was there lack of thinking or what is going on? Then the GMO thing. Okay? Why couldn't he wait for his cabinet? Huh?
Right.
Because the people who made that was not his cabinet. There were holdovers from Uhuru. And I was wondering how come none of them could raise questions. They just went, rubbered.
Yeah.
And the unfortunate part of it is that it has generated unnecessary noise. Questioning him, his judgment. Eh?
Right.
So the court, the others said, they said, don't do it. Now, as I think one of the bishops said, look, it's not to do this for or against, but there is some need for careful thinking, that you don't just jump into things. So is it possible that Ruto has been jumping into things in a hurry, which then make him look bad? The other day he told people, cut expenses, which is good. And Jogon Nandungo has a challenge of cutting.
Cutting is, I know.
But then what did we see? More than 350 people, joy riders, going to Egypt to listen to climate.
Yeah. And some pictures showing you sleeping.
You know that these were relatives of who is who. There are really relevant people there. There were governors and their spouses.
The highest number of delegates across, you know.
Governors and their spouses or relatives or some, you know. So you check that list and you say, what is this? Yes, there was supposed to be a good delegation. And I think more than 50 people was more than enough because there are various committees there. And these should be experts, people who know what they're talking about. But surely, 350 and you're telling us you are cutting?
Impossible.
The things need to be paid. Universities are collapsing, they have no money. And you tell us that this thing? Then we are told no conferences. What have we been seeing? MCAs running around. Wait a minute, where is this man? Like the other, there was a story of what? People who went to Zanzibar
yes,
and spent how many millions just enjoying in the Zanzibar and going to the tortoise place.
Yeah.
You know, so the optics are not good. And poor Gachagua, he's a good man, but he has a problem. he looks as if he's a man on a vengeance. Cannot weigh his words.
Right, yeah.
You know, so they are doing a lot of things. They are doing their best, but they're also blundering. And maybe those kind of blunders is what encourage people like the professor there to say, can we amend something?
Yeah, so just for
yes. And I mean, in a nutshell, because we have to close, yes.
I'll be very brief.
Do you proceed, or have they...
First and foremost, let me tell you what, my intentions are very, very sincere. Why I'm saying so, I was at the epicenter of bombers. I'm sure, Professor, you saw me there. I was a resident analyst there for TV 47, for other media houses. I was resident there. I saw what happened there. I talked to IBC officials. I talked to so many politicians. We had time to talk with the likes of Murkomen because they are buddies, even if they're on the other side. I had so many discussions. In fact, let me tell you what, some people from Kenya Kwanza regretted that Ruto was running as deputy president while Uhuru was the president and was not supporting him, because it became whereby, how do you command this government? Can you imagine if the president is commanding, let's go Azimio, is the chair of Azimio, and the deputy president, who is also in government, is commandeering, let's go Kenya Kwanza. And for example, if you are to give a command to a policeman in Bomas to do anything as head of state, yet the deputy is running and has another command. You guys, I saw a serious insecurity in that place. You could see in the morning, security is reading Azimio. In the afternoon, it is Kenya Kwanza. It was even physical danger for everybody. So this is a very honest thing. It's unfortunate Gachagua is in office, but that's not the target. We're just trying to say, go for deputy president to support that guy, not to as a stepping stone to be president. In fact, you accusing me that I'm trying to target him. You are the one maybe trying to look at Gachagua. Here we are looking at setting up institutions. We should have Kenyans set up in a constitution and as an institution. Then, of course, I can tell you political expediency. Do you know what's happening? The people of Kenya like this close. I can tell you. I can see conversation going on in all social media. Also, there are some goodies. Ward fund. In fact, that for me is a more important thing, because when you are a governor and you have these MCs coming to the assembly, when they oppose you, you withdraw all resources from their ward so that they don't get re-elected. And that has always brought challenges. In places, for example, in Siaya, they change from every sub-county to every sub-county, saying that if the governor came from this side, next time she'll come from this side. But if there's a ward fund, no one really bother. There's CDF being proposed here.
Yes.
And of course, we're also stretching the CDF that it should also go to the church development activities like healthcare facilities and schools, to empower these small churches that people are always say small churches and useless churches. There are a few things there that people have. Youth fund, for example. Youth commission, whereby we want a youth commission that will advise the president, the county government and all that, health service commission, to remove the mess of doctors, whereby doctors are being... So there are beautiful things there that even people are supporting, and maybe maybe you can propose is, how would you want it? Because it's very easy to say, this is dead on arrival. But how can it have life? And also, to answer the most important question, I just give you statistics that Kenya is amending the constitution after 12 years. America did theirs after 2 years. South Africa did theirs after just 6 months. And India did theirs after 2 years. So actually, what I learned from all this narrative is that any country that promulgated a constitution, then immediately rectified what was wrong, tended to succeed, than the one who had their own constitution and let it go on for long. Then people traditionalize the bad habits. Then it is difficult to remove what you call legitimacy issues, what you call legacy issues. They tended to succeed more than those who are keeping. So Kenyans, I can tell you, it's too late. Amend this constitution.
Fair enough. Gentlemen, time is completely not in favor of us even having parting shots, and so you'll allow me to close it at this very point. It's exactly 8:31, 30 seconds. Otherwise, we're going to be locked out of this space.
Yeah, I hear what Professor is saying, and I think we need to be careful that we don't try to legislate good manners.
Yes.
Because this issue of president not agreeing with the president is good manners. You can't legislate that. We shouldn't go that. When you make examples of the American Constitution, you need to know the amendments they did. They didn't change the Constitution. They added the first one was civil rights, the number 2 was the right to own guns, the number 3 was one item that was inserted in the constitution. It's not a change.
An amendment of the whole time. All right. Well, that's an amendment as well. Okay. All right. Thank you.
The bottom line is everything is politics.
Everything is politics and interest for that matter. Asante sana, Professor. I think I'll start by telling you thank you. Special thanks.
And you know
we have to close.
Yes, yes. He has also said he is not inclined to any side, but he has passed a comment that Murkomen is a bad day despite being on the other side. So he is on the other side.
Everybody has a side. You have to sleep somewhere.
That's why Professor says everything is politics. Asante sana. Last speaker, Peter Moshendu, governance expert. Asante sana, as well as governance expert Dr. Fred. Asante sana for speaking to us this very morning, and also for according us a noble aspect and ground to have that very important conversation. Engineer Alex Mwathi, and lastly, Professor